Hello and welcome back as we continue our discussion of AWS Kinesis. So as we discussed in the previous lesson, AWS Kinesis is for real-time streaming of data. Now in this particular example here, I have laid out an example of some producers and some common consumers, so we can take a look specifically at producers and consumers and see how the workflow can pass data from the producers through Kinesis out to the consumers, and then even triggering something like an SNS topic to then send an alert or an email to a customer. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a second, or more specifically, a good example of how this may work. So let's say that we are a shoe company and we decide that we want to put IoT sensors into each pair of shoe that we sell. So we now have thousands upon thousands of IoT sensors in shoes that are currently being worn by our customers. Now, what these sensors may do is just capture a simple amount of data, which one of the data sets may be the amount of steps that have been taken by the consumer wearing these particular shoes. Now, what might we do with that data? Well, what we can do is we can capture all of that data. We can capture how many steps are being taken, and we can funnel that into Kinesis. And one, we can store that data in S3. We can see in real time how many people are walking in our shoes and how many steps they're currently taking. And what we can do is we could even arrange something where after a certain amount of steps, let's say it's 10,000 steps or however many steps, we know that once a customer of ours currently reaches that amount of steps, then the shoe may be starting to wear out. And maybe we should send them an email alert reminding them that, hey, it might be time for you to buy a new pair of shoes. So collecting all of the data, maybe there's a whole subset of people that have gone over the 10,000 steps wearing that particular shoe. We then want to process and analyze that, extract that customer's information, and then using SNS, send them an email that says, hey, you have reached over 10,000 steps wearing our particular shoe. Maybe it's time you go and buy a new pair of shoes. So that is just a really quick example of how you can use Amazon Kinesis to capture data from thousands upon thousands or tens of thousands Internet of Things sensors being producers, have Kinesis analyze that data, output it to consumers, and then even trigger actions based off of those results. Now let's take a look again at producers, because I want you to have a really good understanding of what these are. So producers are devices that collect data for Kinesis processing. You build producers to continuously input data into a Kinesis stream. And producers can include, but are not limited to, IoT sensors and mobile devices, meaning cell phones. And you can have literally thousands of different producers and scale based on need. So the more data you want to produce, so the more sensors you have, the more data you have incoming, the more shards you add to your Kinesis stream. And again, shards are how you select your processing power. So each shard can produce 2 megabytes of read data per second and 1 megabyte of write data per second. So depending on how much megabytes of data you have to process per second will determine how many shards you need in your Kinesis stream. So now let's take a look at consumers. So consumers consume the stream's data. This is done concurrently, meaning that multiple consumers can consume the same data at the same time. So we can have data being output to S3, DynamoDB, big data, and a real-time dashboard all at the same time. And you can create your own custom application that could be a consumer as well. Now, it is also important to remember that Kinesis keeps 24 hours of streaming data stored by default, but it can be configured to store up to 7 days. So again, this is your data buffer. This is the buffer that is currently being held within Kinesis to be analyzed for your live real-time stream. So again, what's really important to understand about Kinesis is that Kinesis is for real-time data streaming. You have producers, which can be something like IoT sensors or mobile devices that capture information, send it into your Kinesis stream, which you will have to have a developer write code for, and then have that outputted to consumers, which again, you'll have to have a developer write code for, but then you can analyze all of that data in real time, take actions on it, and also store it for further analysis in the future in something like S3 and DynamoDB. And with that, we will conclude this lesson. Thank you for watching. You may now move on.